Welcome back, everyone, to Fireside Football. I'm Kendall Capps.
And I'm Andrew Williams.
Well, it's week 15 of the NFL coming down the stretch. Finally to figure out who's going to be in the playoffs, who's not going to be in the playoffs. Got a lot of big games this weekend.
Well, I'm excited. I'm having trouble picking which games that I'm going to sit down and watch because there's so many to choose from.
Yeah, there are a lot of really good games. How about we kick it off with Jacksonville at Indianapolis? You got two teams trying to win a division. Indy coming from behind. They're one game back. Jacksonville wins this game. Division's pretty much over, right?
Well, and it's a huge game. Indy hasn't missed the playoffs since Peyton Manning's first season. I mean, it's a big streak for him. He wants to keep going. I don't see Indy losing this game. Peyton Manning never gets swept by the Jaguars. They've never swept them. Peyton Manning, since 2005, 18-2 at home versus AFC South opponents. I understand Indy has trouble giving up the run, and Jacksonville runs the ball with Maurice Jones-Drew and Jennings. They really have a nice running game. But I don't think they're built to come from behind. I think the Colts are going to come out. They know they have to win this game. They're going to put some touchdowns on the board early, and I don't think Jacksonville's going to be able to keep up.
You know, and every once in a while, despite this really poor rush defense of Indianapolis's, which has been exposed by almost everyone this year, every once in a while at home, they show up and they stop the run. They did a decent job against Kansas City for a half. And there have been games when randomly they show up. I think this is going to be one of the games. MJD, don't forget, he's a little bit banged up. He's been having knee problems all week. He's practiced, but he's been limited, and I expect that to slow him down a little bit. I think Indy's going to put 8-9 in the box, force Garrard to beat him in the air, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think Indy finds a way to win this game, tie the division, and then find out what happens from there.
Well, let's move out west a little bit to the Show Me State. Two teams in Missouri competing for playoff spots, playing against each other. You've got Kansas City going into St. Louis. What do you see happening here?
You know, to me, this game hinges on the health of Matt Castle. If he plays, I like their passing game. I think Dwayne Bowe will have a good game against that St. Louis secondary. However, if he's unable to play, Brodie Croyle just can't get the ball downfield. He had, 40 yards passing last week. I don't expect very much if he's not able to play. St. Louis has been a pretty good home team. Kansas City's been a pretty bad road team. Now, granted, it's in the same state, so they'll still have lots of fans in the ballpark. But if Castle's not there, I'd like St. Louis to find a way to win it.
I'm going to take Kansas City. I'm going to take them unconditionally, though. I know Brodie Croyle looked bad last week. They were playing San Diego, a really, really strong, talented team. I think Kansas City could go into St. Louis and win this game even if Brodie Croyle's starting. I think their running game is that good. Jamal Charles, Thomas Jones, eating up yards on the ground. And St. Louis, I think they've really had a soft schedule, and they've still managed to clunk their way to 6-7. They're still going to be a force in the NFC West, a challenge for the division. But I think Kansas City, of these two teams, is the real deal. They're the ones that are really a legit playoff contender.
Yes, and I agree. I think Kansas City is a better team across the board, but I mean, are we really going to have a team 7-9 reach playoffs? It's never happened before. Only twice in history has there been a team 8-8 reach the playoffs. San Diego a couple of years ago, in the '85 Browns won their division, and I mean, it's looking like that might happen. It would be quite despicable if that's allowed to happen.
That's true. Maybe they'll change that rule though coming in next year.
They might have to if you got a 7-9 team in the playoffs playing at home against maybe a team like New Orleans, who might be the 5 seed. Speaking of, they're going on the road this week to Baltimore. A really big game. What do you think?
Well, like you said, it's a huge game. Both of these teams need a win to stay in the race in their respective divisions. You've got New Orleans trailing Atlanta by a game. Baltimore, after that big loss at Pittsburgh, trailing Pittsburgh by a game. And I'm going to take New Orleans here. I know it's on the road. I think Baltimore just is having too much trouble running the ball. And I think to beat this New Orleans team, you've got to run the ball. You look at, even in their upset games, like when they lost to Cleveland, Peyton Hillis just destroyed them. I don't think Baltimore's running the ball enough to keep that New Orleans off the field. And speaking of that New Orleans offense, Baltimore's having a hard time stopping the pass. This is not the team you want to play if you're having a hard time stopping the pass.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It's going to be difficult. And don't forget, New Orleans, they're actually 5-1 on the road. They've played really well on the road this year. Now, granted, they're going outdoors in the cold. It should slow down that offense a little bit. Chris Ivory's banged up. Pierre Thomas isn't back. Reggie Bush still isn't 100%. So I don't expect their running game to be at full strength and them to be as explosive. In the last couple of wins that they've had, I mean, let's face it, they barely beat the Bengals a couple weeks ago. They barely beat the Cowboys. However, they are winning those games. Baltimore, their secondary got exposed once again last week against Houston on Monday night. They're coming off the short week. I like New Orleans also in a tight game on the road.
And Baltimore is also finding a lot of ways to give up leads late in games. 8 fourth-quarter leads blown this year.
Now, they still ended up winning a couple of those games.
Absolutely.
But just, that's not the typical defense that you think of when you think of Baltimore. A team that gives up a lead in the fourth quarter, that's normally not what you think of. And that's been the team this year.
When your secondary can disappear and you can't run the ball, that's what happens.
Yeah, they're second to last in the NFL in yards per carry. So, I mean, despite the fact that Ray Rice, yards from scrimmage, is having a decent year because he catches so many passes, they're not running the ball well, and you're right, it's going to catch up to them.
Well, let's head over to a big game between Green Bay and New England. Green Bay going into New England, but they're very injured. Aaron Rodgers is out with a concussion. We already know Ryan Grant's gone. We know the list of Green Bay's injuries. And they're playing a New England team right now that is rolling through everyone.
I mean, New England has beaten Indianapolis, San Diego, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, the Jets, Chicago. They've beaten almost every good team in the NFL to this point, and now they're at home where Brady still hasn't lost since 06. It's going to be during the regular season since 06. It's going to be really difficult, especially with Matt Flynn at quarterback. Who's going to be able to get the ball to their receivers? I mean, the receivers are the only weapons they have left, but without a quarterback, how are they going to be able to use them? And they're going to have a hard time doing that in New England.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the snow, in the cold, in New England, with no quarterback, no running back, I think this has blowout written all over it. I'm going to take New England going away. I think this could be a 30-point win for the Patriots.
It could. There's something in my gut. All year, what have we seen? As soon as we find something out, as soon as we know who the best team is, or we finally have an idea of how the season is going, something takes a weird turn left.
And usually the team who wins 5 straight games is the next team to lose.
And I just have this weird feeling I'm not going to pick Green Bay. I like New England to win the game, but I think Green Bay is going to show up. Their season is on the line. They lose this, they probably fall 2 behind Chicago with 2 to go. I don't like their chances if they lose this. I think they come out, they fight, their defense plays as well as they can, but ultimately they will come up short. New England will win the game.
Well, how about the Jets going into Pittsburgh? 2 big teams that like to stop the run, like to run the ball, but they're kind of going opposite directions right now. Pittsburgh kind of rolling, taking over first place in the division, and the Jets seem to be backing up quickly with two back-to-back losses, heading into 2 tough games.
The Jets are thinking back. I know their fans are a little bit nervous. They're thinking back to that season. They were 10-1 20 years ago, and they lost every game the rest of the way out.
Or how about 2 years ago with Brett Favre when they were, I think,
7-1 at the start of the season.
He lost
5
of their last 6 or so and didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, odds are, considering they have a 2-game lead in the wild card standings, they're probably still going to find their way into the playoffs. But they're not playing well right now. Mark Sanchez is reverting back to his old self. He's turning the ball over a lot. He's not taking care of it. He's throwing picks. He's throwing into coverage. He's not reading defense as well. And on the flip side, Pittsburgh has been getting better and better the last few weeks. Now, they're still not running the ball well. Rashard Mendenhall's averaging just over 60 yards a game his last few games. He's not running for yards per carry as well. The offensive line problems, they've had a lot of issues with that, a lot of injuries. And they haven't been able to open up holes. So I don't expect them to be able to run away with this game. But the Jets are 0-7 in Pittsburgh in the last 30 years, 3-16 all-time against Pittsburgh. I don't think they find a way to win this game with the way they're playing. I like Pittsburgh at home.
I'm going to take Pittsburgh as well. Darrelle Revis having some hamstring injuries opens up Mike Wallace going deep. Like you said, Pittsburgh hasn't run the ball as much this year, but their passing game has improved and improved. I think they'll get some of that running game back. They'll have a good performance. And I just think with that Jets offense, Pittsburgh stops the run so well, and you're going to have to rely on Mark Sanchez throwing the ball to Troy Polamalu.
Well, that's one thing that does help the Jets a little bit. Polamalu's been ruled out this week.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he's been ruled out. So now their defense is never quite the same when he's out, and that could change things a little bit, but ultimately I still think the Jets are going to have a hard time being able to put up enough points to win.
And as you said, they're 2 games up in the wild card standings, but the Jets have 2 hard games back-to-back, 2 losable games. They don't want to be thrown back into this mix of having to scramble.
They have to sweat it out. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's going to take us to our final game, probably the biggest game of the weekend. The Philadelphia Eagles going on the road to the New York Giants. Both teams 9-4. Winner probably takes the division. What do you think?
Well, I'm torn on this game. This is my preseason pick to win the NFC East, and the Giants playing kind of my newfound favorite team I've been rooting for in the Eagles, just the way they're playing. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think it could be a 40-35 game. I like the way that the Giants are coming together. They're running the ball really well with that combination of Bradshaw and Jacobs. And now they're getting Hakeem Nicks back. Their passing game's got a few more options. but I'm still going to take the Eagles here. I like what they're doing. They put up so many points. It's so hard to keep up with them. And they do give up the pass a little, they give up some points on defense, but they just seem to have the offense to overcome them.
Yes, I agree. I like the Eagles. I do think it will be close. I don't know if it's going to be quite as high scoring. I think the Giants' defense is built to play against this Eagles offense because they're very difficult to slow down. But you can apply the pressure that they can with the front four, keep 7 back in coverage. It will help them a lot. Deshaun Jackson is questionable. He's probably going to play, but he's not 100%, which helps Macklin, which is probably good for your fantasy team.
Absolutely.
But they're going to have a hard time moving the ball as well as they do against everyone else. But ultimately, they're going to put up points. The New York Giants are struggling a little bit. They've won a couple games the last couple weeks against inferior opponents. This is by far the best team that they've played since the last time they played Philadelphia. And I think they're going to find out who the best team in the
Well, and I think the last time that they played, they really gave Philadelphia their best shot, their ace punch, and Philadelphia kind of took it, hit them back, and won that game by using LaShawn McCoy in that running game a little more than they usually do. And I think, again, Philly may be able to just turn that on. And now that they've seen what the Giants are going to throw at them once, Michael Vick may be able to get some more opportunities and open that offense up a little more.
Well, it should be a great weekend of football. Hope you all enjoy it. This guy, I know he's going to make up some room here because he's about 10 games back in the standings.
It's going to be hard since we all just pick the same
teams. Most of the same teams. But, you got a couple weeks left and we got the playoffs, so we'll see what you do. But hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again next week. For Andrew Williamson, I'm Kendall Caps. Hope you enjoyed the show.